Welcome to the Patricia Raskin Show, the program that helps you turn obstacles into opportunities, challenges into solutions, and find answers to tough questions. And now, the award-winning powerhouse voice of radio. Here's your host, Patricia Raskin.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome. Welcome to the Patricia Raskin Positive Living Show, right here on VoiceAmericaMedia.com, America's Voice. We've been on the air, I think now it's about 25 years. I've been on many other networks, many other stations, but I've always stayed with Voice America Media. So I've always had this show in addition to others. And I've been fortunate to interview over 6,000 people in my career. So this has been a wonderful, gratifying experience and continues to be. And today my guest is someone that I have known for a while. She is really a powerhouse in the fashion industry and in the business industry. She knows how to combine both. She is a talent agent, an event producer, an entrepreneur, and a business mentor for over 4 decades. And she has experience in entertainment, in fashion, and in small business. My guest is Yemi Sekoni. She's an MBA, Master's in Business Administration, and she's the director of Donahue Models and Talent, Rhode Island's oldest modeling and talent agency, where she has helped to launch and develop the careers of countless models, actors, and creative professionals. She's also the founder and executive producer of Rhode Island Fashion Week, one of the region's premier fashion events dedicated to showing designers, artists, and emerging talent while fostering growth within the creative local community. Through her leadership, Rhode Island Fashion Week has become a platform that celebrates fashion, entrepreneurship, diversity, and community engagement. Welcome, Yemi Sekoni.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and there's more. She's on the board of directors of many organizations. She's worked with the U.S. Small Business Administration. So you've done so many things, Yemi. You've built multiple successful ventures in fashion, in talent, and event production. What first inspired you to pursue this path? And did you start with passion? With fashion, or did you start with business?
Neither, actually. I started, and when I say 40, because when people hear me say 4 decades of what I do, is because I started this as a child. I started in theater when I was about 8, 9, 10 years old. I'm 57 now, so the world of fashion and entertainment it's part of my DNA. And so I loved theater growing up. I did a lot of stage productions, both on stage, but also behind the scenes as well. So even at a young age, I was getting to learn production as a whole, costume design, and, building my confidence, developing my stage presence. When I moved to the United States, I was born in England, thus the slightly weird accent. I moved to the United States in 1999, moved to Rhode Island in 2001. And so actually, I was just trying to get back to my roots of theater here, didn't know where to go, and ended up going to a modeling school, a model development school. But when I did that, it really was just, I thought, a foot in the door to get back into the acting side of things. But then I started to dabble in modeling and thought, oh, wow, this is fun. I'm getting to do runway shows and photo shoots and whatnot. And then ultimately I joined Donahue Models, the agency, as a model back in 2005. And then over the years of working with Annette, she just always liked my passion, my energy, my hardworking nature. So 2009, when she was starting to look at retiring, she approached me and asked if I would consider buying the company from her. And so that's what we did. So I purchased the agency in 2010, and I've owned it ever since. And that's where the entrepreneurial side of me started to really emerge. Now, I'd gotten my MBA several years before, never really thinking, because I also worked at a bank. I had a day job at the time. I worked in a bank. So when I was pursuing my MBA, I was thinking more of corporate America, not really realizing that it would actually serve me much more when I then ended up buying this company and now being able to put what I'd learned to good use. And that's where the entrepreneurial side of me came into play.
Wow. So it's kind of serendipitous in a way. It just kind of happened and everything
Absolutely.
fell into place, as you said. Yeah.
Yes.
And Yemi, in this kind of business, it's like any business. You really need those business skills, don't you?
Absolutely. And one of the things as creatives, one of the things we're not very good at is the business side of things. I meet a lot of artists, a lot of fashion designers, people that are in the creative space that want to turn their talents into a business. And they only focus on the creative side of what they do and think that will get them through. And I'm always trying to remind them, no, you have to do the admin, the follow-up, the marketing, the promotions, the building your brand, the brand identity, and really trying to remind them that they have to go hand in hand. So I really have been blessed to be a creative. So, I'm basically, I suppose, using both my left brain and right brain is what they say. And kind of, I don't know, I've been able to make it
Yeah.
work.
Yeah. I have so many questions, but I want to throw this one in. When I think about this, when I think about you working with models and you've interviewed and worked with thousands, what does it take? I mean, now let me preface this by saying I think our uh, common knowledge or the myth that people think, well, you got to be tall, you got to be skinny, you got to be blonde if you're a white person, right?
Right.
You've got to have poise,
Uh-huh.
you've got to be a little bit erudite. I mean that's what we see. Will
Uh-huh.
you straighten that out for us, please?
So, I mean, when the world of modeling really formulated itself into being an industry way back when, it was that. And we had, back then we had the supermodels. We had Naomi Campbell and Claudia Schiffer and
Right.
those people. But over the years, when you really break down the purpose of a model's job is to sell the product.
Ah,
And as advertisers started to really think about this, if I'm sitting at home and watching television, or if I'm, sorry, let me do it the other way. As an advertiser, if I'm advertising a product to try and reach somebody at home that's in front of the television, that's not just the tall, blonde, blue-eyed, 5'11", erudite, young lady. It's the older, the younger, the bigger, the smaller, every
yeah,
age, size,
yes.
identity. So the market slowly shifted, and and I'm glad that it has, to represent everyone or feature everybody that is represented on the couch watching their commercials at home.
And I just want to add to that. When I watch commercials now,
Mm,
particularly on news networks, most of the people in those commercials are not that stereotype at all. They're all
absolutely.
shapes, they're all colors, they're all sizes, they're
Yeah.
all everything.
Yes. And as a casting, because on the agency side of what I do, I spend my days, going to different sites, casting platforms where I'm looking to see what casting opportunities are coming. And I love when I see something that requests, you still get the ones that will say, we want 3 females, one black, one white, one Asian. But then you'll get others that will say any ethnic appearance. And then you'll get people that will say, we want somebody with a visible disability. We want a plus size model. We want somebody petite, because they are identifying who their audience is and they want to make sure that they're representing who
Wow.
is, who they're appealing to.
Right. So when we're talking now about modeling, you're not just talking about the runway models at all. And
No,
I think, but that even gets what we think. When I think, oh, Yemi owns a modeling agency. We have all these beautiful people in these gorgeous clothes.
that's a fraction of what I do. Tiny
Wow.
fraction of what I do. I mean, that's where I have the most fun because then I get to really bring in my theater production to things, and that will I would imagine that we'll get to Rhode Island Fashion Week in a little bit. But yes, especially in the New England market, we're a lot less like New York or even Boston, north of us. So in our local market, my clients are looking more for good, clean, wholesome, all-American guy or girl next door that's got personality. So they want somebody that can articulate, that can bring great energy to the camera. Because yes, we're looking at TV commercials, we're looking at web ads. Sometimes we're looking at industrials where a company needs to create a video to train their employees. And usually those are actors, they're not employees in the video. And so what I do goes far beyond just the traditional photos or runway, as you said. So as I populate my roster, I'm constantly thinking about the different buckets that I need to fill to make sure that I've got someone on my database that a client could potentially find use for.
Do you ever know somebody and you think, oh, this friend of mine or this colleague, they'd be perfect? Does that ever happen?
It does, yes. So when the requests come in, sometimes they get very specific. We need someone who can articulate, someone who's had experience acting, and I can, off the top of my head, think of some people on my database that would be a good fit. Or sometimes I know friends. I'll think, oh, you should really do this, and I don't. I used to, but I don't actually go out. You know, sometimes some people go up and hand you a card and say, I own this agency. You should talk to me about modeling. I
Yeah.
tend not to do that. A lot of the time, people send people to me, but when I'm out and about, I'm just out and about, just doing and being me. I don't scout.
I've never seen you scout, and I've known you a long time.
Yeah.
Never. I mean, you talk about what you love. You talk about your shows. You
Right.
talk about, and you'll, show us some of the clothes, or you'll tell us what you're doing that you're excited about. But
Mhm.
I've never seen that, um, as you say, salesman. You've never
Right.
been
Yeah.
pushy with selling at all.
And I think for me, it's because what people don't recognize, what people don't understand when they come into modeling is that it's a commitment. There's an out-of-pocket investment to get started. You have to pay for the website, you have to pay for your photo shoot. So when I scout and then now you come in and now I'm telling you what it takes, I started to get a lot of people that go, oh God, I didn't realize it was, I thought it was just going to be fun, something fun that I can do. So I've just chosen, I prefer that people who want to do this find me. And I do a 45-minute interview with everyone that's interested in coming on board with the agency. And I really break it down for them to say, this might be a part-time gig because we're in New England, it's not a full-time job. But if you are committing to do this, there's a work ethic, there's etiquette, there's accountability that I have high expectations of my models, and I make sure that they understand that from the get-go, or they don't get
Right.
started at all.
Yemi, do any of them have scripts? Do any of them, and many times when I'm watching commercials, particularly pharmaceutical commercials, you don't see them speaking. I mean, they're speaking, but it's muted. Um, are there scripts?
Yes, a lot, and especially with TV commercials, the scripts are usually very specifically written. And as an actor, if you usually get the scripts, ahead of time that you have to memorize. In some cases, there may be a teleprompter, but in those instances, there's very rarely any room for ad-libbing. It has to be precise because every word within a 30-second commercial counts.
You, I have to share this with you because it's the one that comes to mind. You've probably seen it, but there's this commercial with a mother and a daughter. She's a child, and they're trying to find the right cereal, and they're fighting about what to eat, and they finally find the right cereal they both like. And the father goes, "Oh," and passes out, and the grandmother goes, "Oh," and passes out. And the mother and daughter go, "Yes, we found the cereal we love." And it's adorable. I mean, it's weird, but it really it captures you.
Right. Yes. And they put just as much work into doing as shooting a commercial as they would with filming a movie, a TV show, because it does
Really?
have to come across believably. Yes. So
Yeah.
that could be a 1, 2 day shoot in some cases.
Wow. For 30
Yeah.
seconds.
For a 30-second. Oh yes, they'll get hours of footage and then now they have to splice it down. And I
Wow.
really started to appreciate that because we create ads for Fashion Week. And ours is really tongue in cheek. It's a lot of my committee and we go into our studio and we have fun. We kind of put something together. And I do the editing. And I really have come to appreciate how much you have to cut out of everything that you shoot in order to splice it down to 30 seconds. It is tough.
I know.
Yeah.
I, yeah, yeah. I've done it with when I've interviewed people and I've had to cut down what they're saying and
Mm.
it is hard because sometimes you just have to try to cut and paste. But
Right.
we've got 3 minutes to break, but I want this question before we go to break. You need confidence in this. I mean, this is an important piece. Do you think confidence is something you're born with, Yemi?
In some cases, yes. Some people are born with it, some are not. But the ones who are not can certainly develop it because what is confidence? It's just basically having the knowledge that even if you do something that doesn't work or fails, it's not the end of the world. You can bounce back and keep moving forward. At least that's how I interview confidence. And so, sometimes when a new model comes on board and we're sending them out for their first job, they are more often than not, they're scared to death. But then they do that first job and they realize, oh, it wasn't so bad after all. And then I send them for the next one and the next one. And then their confidence starts to grow. Same with actually, and I see this in real time on the runway. We start a runway show, model walks out, you can see them trembling. You can literally see their feet shaking in their shoes. And then they
Mm,
go out and then they hear the audience applause and they see that people are just really appreciating
mm,
them being there.
mm.
And by the time they go out that second time, third time, you can actually see you can see the addiction building because they're like, oh my God, this really feels good. And
Uh,
models fall in love with runway for that. I mean, we're all hams. We love the attention, otherwise we wouldn't be doing it. But you can literally see the confidence build in real time. So not everybody's born with it, but it's something that you can actually develop.
right. But again, you have to be in the right situation too. You want to pick those situations where you can be confident.
That is true. But I personally have always gone by the philosophy, feel the fear, but do it anyway. So I haven't always been confident myself, especially when I first bought the agency, because even though I'd modeled for several years in Rhode Island before I bought the agency, I found myself going from one level to a completely different level. And so
Yes.
people that didn't know me kind of thought, oh, well, who's this woman just came from nowhere and now she owns an agency? And I'll tell you this, Patricia, for the first probably 3 years, when I met people for the first time, I didn't tell them I owned the agency. I told them I worked for the agency because
Interesting. Why did you do that?
I didn't have the confidence because I thought they were going to question, who do you think you are? Where'd you come from?
Oh,
Whereas people had been in this industry longer than I had been around in Rhode Island.
right.
And so even though, of course, she wouldn't have sold me the agency if she didn't think I would carry her legacy on. But even I questioned my ability to do it and do it successfully. So it was just easier to say, oh yeah, I work for an agency. So they didn't have to ask me any questions.
And then you built up your confidence.
And then I built up my confidence. Right.
All right, we're going to take a break. And when we come back, we're talking to Yemi Sekoni about the whole business of modeling, of commercials, of what it takes. When we come back, we'll talk about what are the common obstacles that prevent people from reaching their potential, particularly in this business. We'll talk about, what are some advice she has for people who feel stuck. And again, Yemi Sekoni is a talent agent, event producer, entrepreneur, and score business mentor with more than 4 decades of experience in the fashion and entertainment industries. And she directs and owns Donahue Models and Talents, Rhode Island's oldest modeling and talent agency. So we'll be right back with with Yemi Sekoni. She has so much energy and passion and so much more to share. So stay tuned, folks. We'll be right back.
You are listening to The Patricia Raskin Show. You may send an email to patricia@patriciaraskin.com. Now, back to The Patricia Raskin Show.
Hi, everyone. We are back. We are back with the amazingly energetic and amazing woman, Yemi Sekoni, MBA, who's a talent agent, event producer, entrepreneur, and SCORE business mentor with more than 4 decades of experience in the fashion and entertainment industries. She directs Donahue Models and Talent, Rhode Island's oldest modeling and talent agency, and is the founder and executive producer of Rhode Island Fashion Week. Yemi also serves on the board of directors of the Miss Rhode Island Scholarship Organization as field director and social media manager. Through her work developing talent, producing events, and mentoring entrepreneurs, Yemi is dedicated to helping individuals build confidence, grow professionally, and achieve their goals. Welcome back, Yemi.
Thank you.
All right, so here's what I want to know. Through your work with so many models, actors, entrepreneurs, what are the most common obstacles that prevent people from reaching their full potential? Is it confidence?
That's a huge one. That's a big one, especially the ones that don't have it from the get-go. And then of course it's fear of failure. But again, my philosophy is always feel the fear, but do it anyway. And I always, and start a little bit at a time. This happens a lot with people that I mentor through the Small Business Administration, and they tend to send a lot of creatives my way. And so sometimes what happens is, number one, you don't know where to start. So you've got all these ideas going on in your head and you can't see the forest for the trees. So I'm able to kind of break it down and sort through the mess. And because I'm not inside, I'm on the outside, it's a little bit easier to see the mess than you right in the middle of it. And I'll be able to, realign all the steps that they need to take. And they go, oh, this feels so much better. I think I can tackle this now. So sometimes it's just the overwhelming feeling. But then a lot of them, it's, oh God, what if I fail? Well, then what if you succeed? So why think about failure when you haven't even put your foot through the door yet?
Well, but Yemi, let me just say though, it's a tough industry. I mean, this is tougher than most. And there's going to be a lot of rejection in this industry.
That is absolutely right. And so the other thing I tell them is you have to be prepared to take the rejection. And I try to remind my models when I submit a model for a job and you don't get selected, it's not necessarily because the other model was prettier than you or more beautiful or taller or had better hair. It's the client is looking for a specific look. I may submit 2 kids for a client and one comes in, they're red hair and they've got freckles and the other one is maybe just, dark hair or just a regular blonde. And the client will go, oh my God, freckles and red hair. That is so cute. We want to go there. So it's not like the other child was pretty. It's just that they see something that they feel represents their brand more. I've had to talk to mothers that are driving home after a casting because their child didn't get picked for the job. And I've had to break it down to say, Mom, take a deep breath, calm down, and have this same conversation that I'm having with you now. It's not that they did anything wrong, but the client really does have to, because whoever they pick to represent their brand is going to be, it's like buying a pair of glasses. You're stuck with it for years. So they want to make sure that they get the best representation for them. And it could be based on a specific feature, a way they sound, a way they say a word. We never know, but we always have to respect that. So rejection is a huge part of what we do, but it cannot be separated from our industry. It is what it is.
Okay, but here's the question. If you keep getting rejected, could it be that you're just not good enough for what you're looking for? Or is it that you just haven't done that 101st try that makes it?
There's that. And it could, so if you're not selected because you, for want of a better word, suck, then could you find, well, that's another thing that as actors and models they need to do. It's constant professional and personal development. You don't just become a model and then stop learning. So could you be doing something differently? And one of my practices after every model does a job with a client is I follow up with a client to say, hey, how did it go with so-and-so yesterday? Any feedback we would appreciate. And I pass that on to the model. And then I ask the model as well, how did you enjoy how was the shoot yesterday? Any feedback from the experience? So I can make sure that both, client and model are being matched properly. So if a model is not, I never tell them to quit, but I say, what can we do and help you do differently? Or do you need more training? Do you need more learning? Do you need more practice? in order to get better. But I really couldn't say that I know someone that quit the industry because they never got selected for anything ever.
Mhm. Because they had what it took, in your opinion,
Right. And
or you
also
wouldn't
that
have
they had
chosen it.
they had the drive and the persistence.
That's another thing is the persistence, isn't it? The passion and persistence. I have 5 P's to success that I came up with like decades and decades ago. And the first one is purpose, right?
Mm,
And then planning, and then passion, but you've got to have persistence and
yes.
patience. And then I added a 6 1 years later prayer. I think
Ah.
those are
Yes.
those are really because you can have all the passion in the world, but you've got to stick with it.
Right.
And I know because I'm in this industry, not in the same industry, but you're in a way, when you're talking to people and you're performing and you're teaching webinars for 500 people and you're doing these podcasts or you're doing TV, you're performing. And it's you have to be able to roll with the punches and you have to be able to um, as you said, take the rejection and understand that.
Right, yes. And I had read, you probably have read Malcolm Gladwell, The Outlier, I think that's the book, where it says the whole idea of the book was the number of hours you put into whatever it is you do to actually perfect whatever craft you're pursuing. And it's like 10,000, I know it's not scientific, but 10,000 hours or more for you to really, really, really get good at whatever, whatever you pursue.
And that was the other thing I didn't add is that you have to really want it. I mean,
Yes.
there have been times when I'm going, really? And I say, I've had it, but I always come back because this is what I believe I'm supposed to do. And somehow, Yemi, no matter what age, I may not have quite as many or it may shift, but I still can get the opportunity. It may not be as prolific as maybe when I was 30, but I
Mm,
can still get them because I really believe in it and I have built a reputation over time. And I think people
absolutely.
forget that as we get older. We have that,
Absolutely.
look, you've built this reputation over time. So I don't have to sell myself so much.
Right. Right. Yes. And I did. I mean, when I first bought the agency, I mean, there were many times, Patricia, where I didn't know if I would survive this because, I'd taken out a huge business loan to buy it. And, again, I was new in the Rhode Island market. So I'd only been in Rhode Island, lived in Rhode Island about no, actually 4 years when I joined the agency, but what, 10 years? So again, it was, and just now I owned a company. I woke up the next morning after we went and signed, the purchase, everything, all the documentation. I thought, holy cow, what have I just done? Now I'm responsible for, 300 something models and all these businesses. And I mean, granted, she was very smart and sneaky in how she kind of brought me in. So for about 2 years before she even had the conversation with me, she would have me coming in and, helping her behind the scenes, working in the office when she traveled, conducting the model interviews, handling her model coaching. So I had no idea that she was planning to ask me this question, but she'd seen what she saw in me that made
They've been
her.
prepping you.
She was prepping me, so I had the opportunity to learn, learn the basics, but it was still terrifying. Oh, it was. Huh. When I think back, sometimes I would wake up in the middle of the night with my heart palpitating because a thought would come to mind like, huh.
But
But
you
yeah,
believed
15
in
years
it.
now.
Yeah, but you believe in it and you stay with it. And I think that's the
Yes,
most important
yes.
thing. Um, so what do you say to people then, having said everything we've just said, who do feel stuck and do
Mm.
feel uncertain and do feel overlooked? What do you say to them?
Well, going back to the persistence, that definitely is it, but also just trying to constantly do a little bit at a time. Don't try to, I think the problem we also face in this day and age with everything being instant, reality TV, everything's online. So conversations I have with a lot of creatives that want to become entrepreneurs is, oh, I want to have so many followers, in 6 months. So I want to be selling to, I want to bring this much in revenue within this certain time frame. And we forget that once upon a time, the internet did not exist. So when you built clients, you built them one person at a time. You had to knock on doors, you had to make phone calls, you had to send emails. And I say that still exists. It has not gone away. And, I tell designers, build your presence physically in your local market. Go to networking events, be present, show up at places. Don't just be online and assume people don't know you, they don't owe you anything. But if they see you, they shake your hand, they can look you in the eye, it makes a world of difference.
You know, when I came back up to my New England roots, I had lived in the South for a while, and I started over, and I had done a lot of media work in the South. And I came up in 2008 in the height of the recession, which I didn't know, which was a good thing. And I started from scratch. I did exactly what you just said. I networked constantly. I
I
built
know.
my business from networking. That's what
That's
I
how
did.
we met from just, and become friends. We would meet at different networking events. You were there, I was there, but yes, it still works.
Yeah. Now, I think, now we talk about how do you network, right?
Mm.
What do you do? And it can be a little tricky because, if you're too pushy and you walk up and say, "Hi, this is what I'm doing. Who are you?" It's the icebreakers. It's getting to know somebody. It's not just in there, well, gee, can you help me? Can I help you? So there's a lot of strategy behind it too, Yemi.
Yes. And what I do, this is my formula. It may not work for everyone, but I go to networking events. I've actually switched from business cards. I now have a digital, the QR code, technology. So I've got that on my phone and I'm able to bring that up. So usually I have the app ready and open on my phone. So when I walk into an event, of course, you scope the room out to kind of figure out where you want to start your conversation. And I try to make it a point to flit around from little group to little group to little group. Of course, the people, especially in Rhode Island, that's a small market, so everybody knows everybody. But I always will look for that person that I've never met before. And I'll go up. If they're within a group or cluster, I'll just kind of, wander in and wait for a break in the conversation and just say, hi, just wanted to, join the conversation. And I'll introduce myself. I'll, shake hands. And then usually it could happen one of two ways. Usually, sometimes at the beginning of the conversation, people start to whip out business cards. And I will always take business cards, whoever hands one to me. And if they're interested in my information, I let them know I have a digital QR code if they want to scan that. But more often than not, when we strike up the conversation, we start to talk, then I figure out, oh, this sounds like somebody I would like to connect with. Do you have a business card? And I'll take it, or then I'll offer them mine. But one of the first questions, people love to talk about themselves. So once you introduce yourself, usually, especially in a business space, I'll ask, so what do you do? Um, and the thing we need to do, though, also is listen to what they say and not just thinking our head what we're going to say once they're done. So that based on what they say, there's a follow-up question. And then at some point, they're going to feel obligated to say, so what do you do? And if they don't ask, if I'm able to work it in, I do. If I don't, if I'm not able to work it in because the conversation has gone in a different direction, I let it go. This isn't somebody that maybe is interested enough to want to know me. But when I leave at the end of the day, I always come back with a stack of business cards, and I've actually got one next to, a couple next to my laptop right now. Within 24 to 48 hours, I have a template that I keep on my Google Drive. I just have a document and I keep my templates in there. And it says something like, "Hey Patricia, it was great to meet you yesterday at the event. I thought there was a great turnout. I met a lot of great people. Listen, I enjoyed the conversation that we were having. I'd love to follow up and have maybe we can do coffee or meet over Zoom so I can learn a little bit more about what you do and see if there might be opportunities for us to collaborate or for me to help you in any way, shape, or form. I'm looking at my calendar right now. I can do next week Friday at 2 p.m. Does that work for you? Let me know. If it doesn't, please suggest an alternative time and I'll see if I can make that work." That is a template that I just copy paste and I adapt it to whomever I'm sending that to. And so I send that to whoever's business cards I've collected that I want to talk to. And now we can sit down nice and quiet and really get the time to know them. That actually is how I've made most of my closer friends in the Rhode Island market from doing that. And then during the conversation, oh my God, you love this too? Oh my God, I love fashion as well. And it builds from there. But if not, either you make a new friend or you make a new business associate.
All right, I'm going to flip that. What if it's the opposite? What if somebody really wants you? They want to talk to you. They know the industry you're in. They want to, for a better word, pick your brain. They want time with you. And, you're busy, you're doing other things. How do you handle that, Yemi?
I always try to make time. Now, yes, I am extremely busy because of all the different pots that I've got my fingers in. So my calendar gets full. So if someone's trying to meet with me now, I may not be able to see them until maybe mid-July or towards the end of July. And I say, as long as that's okay with you, I have learned to protect my calendar. I'm busy, but I try not to stack, one up, one minute, without any breaks in between. So at least I give myself 30 minutes before between meetings. But sometimes that does mean that I cannot see you for another 3 or 4 weeks. But I recognize, especially, the how should I say this now? The ins and outs of different industries start to morph and change with each generation, sometimes in a good way, sometimes in a not so good way. But the next generation will take the good and leave out sometimes the hard work because we're getting as I said, everything's much more instant and quick. So there's shortcuts. And for my industry, I am still very passionate about a model understanding why, if they're walking down the runway and they're doing what we would call a pivot, why are you doing a pivot? What are your feet supposed to be doing? I don't want you just turning around on the runway because that's what you see other people doing. I want you to understand the technique, the poses, the different turns, the different styles of walk. So it's like training a pianist. Everybody can be a musician, but
Oh,
you can get a
interesting.
classically trained pianist, and that for me is important. So I want to make sure that the next generation coming in have the opportunity to speak with the old folk, the grandmamas of the industry now,
I
and
wouldn't
learn the
say you're a
real way to do
grandmama.
stuff.
I would say you are definitely an expert. And on that note, Yemi, it's wonderful to talk with you and very
Yes.
inspiring. And what we're going to talk about in the next segment is Rhode Island Fashion Week. Now, having said that, there are people from all over the world that listen to this show, but they can still tune in. They can probably watch some of your runway things online. Right. So, this is global. So we're going to talk about Fashion Week. We're going to talk about community engagement. We're going to talk about how people can increase their personal brand, right? And what are some of the lessons that you've learned in your journey? So you're listening to the Patricia Raskin Positive Living Show, and my guest today is Yemi Sekoni, and she is a talent agent, event producer, entrepreneur, score business mentor with more than 4 decades of experience in the fashion and entertainment industries, and she directs Donahue Models and Talent, Rhode Island's oldest modeling and talent agency. And she's the founder and executive producer of Rhode Island Fashion Week, which we will talk about next. Stay tuned, everyone. We'll be right back.
You are listening to The Patricia Raskin Show. You may send an email to patricia@patriciaraskin.com. Now, back to The Patricia Raskin Show.
Hi, everyone, and we are back. We are talking to Yemi Sekoni, MBA. She's a talent agent, event producer, entrepreneur, and SCORE business mentor with more than 4 decades of experience in the fashion and entertainment industries. She directs Donahue Models and Talent, Rhode Island's oldest modeling and talent agency, and she's the founder and executive producer of Rhode Island Fashion Week, which we are going to talk about next. All right, let's talk about that. I know you also serve on the board of directors of the Miss Rhode Island Scholarship Organization, which is really wonderful. But let's talk about Rhode Island Fashion Week, how you created it, how it's become more than a fashion event, how it involves creativity and community engagement, and the positive impact that it's left.
So when I started that, I always, from when I was a child, I could not explain this. So you said that you believe that you're here doing what you were meant to do. I feel the
Yes,
same as well.
yes.
Because I remember I must have been like in second grade, and we were doing a performance, we were singing The Sound of Music, and I remember a thought coming into my head thinking, this is your life. Didn't know what it meant at the time. And all through grade school, high school, I always wanted to produce a talent show. I wanted to do a production. Didn't know why. And I would chase my school principal down. When I graduated, she actually confessed to me that when she would see me walking down the hallway, she would hide because she knew that if I caught up with her, I would start talking about something I wanted to produce. Let's do a show. Let's do it this. And she didn't have the capacity to do all of this, but it would just always sit with me. So when I purchased the agency, I thought, oh, now I might get to produce stuff that I enjoy producing, especially because, as I said, I started my roots in theater and I'd gotten the opportunity to learn behind the scenes as well. So in 2016, before 2016, I'd actually started to produce local mini informal fashion shows like in a restaurant, just while the diners were dining, we'd have models roaming around. And then 2016, the other company that actually did kind of like a Fashion Week style show were taking a break because they wanted to kind of step back and rebrand. So there was no fashion week happening in Rhode Island. And friends that knew that I did what I do said, well, I mean, why don't you start something? So I said, all right, you know something, let's just try Rhode Island Fashion Week. If it goes somewhere, it does. If it doesn't, hey, what the hell? So it just started really as, let's just try this. And so 2016, we started and it has grown. I remember the first show we did it at a nightclub. I maybe had 4 designers that we were featuring and maybe about 40, 45 models. 10 years later, this year is actually my 10th year anniversary. It'll be in September officially. So that is going to be a kind of like a bigger celebration. But now when we produce Fashion Week, we're featuring between 20 to 25, 28 designers, and we have as many as between 80 to 100 models. That's even before the audience walks in the door. So the production has become so huge. Then we'll have like 10 to 15 people on the beauty team. I've got my committee. We've got volunteers. It's a production. So there aren't too many places in Rhode Island now that I can produce a show because it's so big. But again,
Question.
it goes back to me just sticking with it and growing it. Yes.
Question. Are the designers all Rhode Island?
No. I do reach out to designers around New England. We've had designers. I had a designer that flew up from Florida before. I've had someone that flew in from California. Now those are outliers. Most of them are local, but I generally reach out to designers around the New England area because it's easy for them to get here.
Right.
But I'd say the bulk of them are Rhode Island.
And the models and the crew and the staff, the bulk of them in Rhode Island, New England?
Yes, bulk of them Rhode Island, New England, but because on my agency side, I have models across the country. So usually when we're casting, I'll send out a casting notice to all the models that are, that do runway to say, hey, Fashion Week is coming up, and they will, choose to come in to participate. So I've had models that have come in from Maryland, from DC, New York, from up, New Hampshire, that'll come down to be part of the show.
Right, right. And in terms of the staff and the crew, do you ever have people who want to get in the door and so they start to work with you and then they kind of work their way in? No, not
So
much.
yeah, well, I built a committee. I have a committee. There are 15 of us. And it's all voluntary. They're all professionals in different fields. They're part of it's my planning committee and advisory board. But they are such an amazing group of people, as passionate as I am, or almost as passionate. So on the day of the show, when we walk into the venue, everybody's got their role. So everyone knows what they're assigned to. I've got the person that handles the front desk, the back of house, the music. We hit the space and we pull it all together. So I don't technically have staff. It's just my committee. But then alongside that, I'll also do a call for volunteers. And those are where you might get someone that wants to break into the industry or they want to experience it from the back end. And we always ask volunteers when they come in, is there a certain part of what we do that you want to gain experience in? So if somebody says they want to work backstage, then we'll try to make sure that we get them, back there so they can gain that experience. And then a lot of them are students, maybe in college, and they just feel that this might be something great to have on their resumes.
Yeah. Having said all of that, what do you think that people can do to improve their brand and their presence? There's a lot of opportunities. I mean, you've mentioned many different opportunities just within Fashion Week for people who are interested. But what can they do to improve their personal brand?
Well, one of the biggest things is integrity. Every brand has brand integrity, otherwise you don't support them, right? And so as an individual, you are your brand and your integrity comes hand in hand with that. Are you a person of your word? Are you showing up when you say you are going to show up? Are you doing the things that you said you were going to do? Are you responding to emails? Are you just being present? And really taking what it is that you want to do seriously. So, I'm not supposed to have favorites, but they are on the agency side now. I have models that I know when I book them for a job, I don't need to check in, I don't need to follow up. I know they're going to show up, they're going to deliver, they know exactly what's expected of them. And then you have the ones that, they're not bad, but I may need to call them the day before to say, you got everything? You sure? You did it out? Did you have any questions? So, you build your brand based on how you present yourself to the world and how seriously you want people to take you. And just making sure that you are representing yourself. I'm not always dressed to the nines when I go out, but even if I'm going to the grocery store, I'm thinking, I may be standing in line with someone, we strike up a conversation, and they say, oh, so by the way, what do you do? And I don't want to be in my flip-flops and pajama bottoms with juicy written on the butt, but, with Ugg boots. And so when I say, oh, I'm a fashion show producer and agent, they're going to look at me and say, oh, well, interesting. So you represent and you show up accordingly. And so part of my brand, I know in Rhode Island, whenever you mention fashion, I'm like, oh, Yemi Sekoni. And, so people know what I do and I make sure that and the other thing, for me is I'm also thinking, especially as a Black woman, there are young Black women, we're always talking about representation and not that there isn't representation, but there aren't as much that, there's representation and then there's representation. And so the younger ladies, the younger girls that are coming up behind me, I want to make sure that they're looking at me and they can see, okay, I can do that. And there is hopefully never a time when they might see something of me on social media or out and about and they think, oh my God, that left a bad taste in my mouth. So while I'm not trying to be anything that I'm not, I think it's just part of who I am, the brand that I've built, that wherever I am, whatever I'm doing and saying, I'm conscious of how that's coming across and who's receiving it and how that might reflect on me.
Yeah. Speaking of that, I'd love you to comment on what I think is the in thing right now, or this generation's thing. And I hate to use the word, but it's grunge. I have never seen such, when I go out, I mean, all I see are torn shorts, right? Sloppy t-shirts, windbreakers, hoodies. What happened, Yemi? What happened? What happened to, when I was in Europe years ago, and I've been back since, but in for example, Spain,
Mm.
the women are elegant. They
Mm.
go out during the day and they are dressed to the nines. What happened to that in our country? Do you have any
I
comments?
I wish I had an answer for you. I'd like to think it is a trend, but it is. It's the bulky, it's the extra layers. It's the,
Yes.
layer upon layer. And so there's no definition, there's no silhouette because everything's just layered on top of
It's
one
like we're
another.
hiding. It's like we're hiding in a way.
Right. And, I don't know if it's part of the, the shift of identities, where now we're recognizing that we're no longer binary, we're no longer he and she. We've got they and thems, and different identities. So I don't know, but I'm just speculating. Could it be that because now there's um a much more broader spectrum of how we identify ourselves, then now there's the movement towards, well, I don't necessarily want to wear anything that defines me as a woman, so I can just put on slouchy stuff and just hide
Mhm.
my being. And then now it became a trend. So now maybe it'll go, I don't know.
Fascinating. Fascinating. It really is fascinating.
It
And I
it
think
is.
dressing up is, I admire that. I admire looking at somebody who's really well dressed. And of course, I'm a different generation. I'm a boomer, but still.
Right.
All right. In the closing minutes we have,
Mm,
looking back on your journey, what lessons about resilience, leadership, and personal growth have had the greatest impact on your success?
mm. Well, first and foremost, resilience. I mean, I remember the first time I learned that word, I'd asked my mother, I don't even know why, I'd asked my mother to describe me in one word, and that was the word she used. So I think I've just been, I've never accepted, I just don't accept no as like the be all or end all of anything. If this doesn't work, I switch. I find ways to do stuff. So my mother, she described me as just someone who always goes. I always go. And so looking back, I think part of my growth also was just not knowing not knowing the load that I was taking on. Had I known it, somebody said, "Oh, when you buy this agency, this and this and this," I might have gone, "Oh, okay, maybe not." Probably not, but so the not knowing the scope of what I was taking on enabled me to step into that space and then figure it out. But then also, as I said, I don't know, not that I cannot say no to ideas or projects or experiences, but I'm usually a yes first person because I love the challenge. I love new challenges. So especially with my Rhode Island Fashion Week team, they'll come up with an idea. Hey, let's do this. And I go, sure, let's give it a try. We try it. If it doesn't work, again, we change directions, we move on. But the fun for me is in figuring it out. And that's the journey, I feel, is not, the success story isn't in the destination. It's in the journey and what you've learned as you go. So nothing is ever, even if it doesn't work out, there's still lessons to be learned from that
Yeah.
you can then apply to whatever else you want to try next. And I think most of what I've done is because of that. At one point, I don't even know if you knew this, I worked for a nonprofit organization as a special events coordinator. That was a job I did right before I bought the agency. So that was a job I quit when I purchased the agency. And it was just a job I was doing because I needed extra income at the time. And well, in addition to other stuff that I was doing, so that I had multiple revenue streams to kind of pay the bills and stay on top of my livelihood. But so I never thought of that job as anything substantial, anything that would lead to anything. But it really helped me, number one, build connections because I had to do a lot of donor relationship management. But also, that was the last experience I had with producing. I used to put on their walkathon. And so I had to really think about the different levels that went into putting that together. And I was able to apply aspects of that to my production, my theater production, my fashion show production world. So I've always felt that everything you do has, even if you may not see the reason, or you don't know if you're going to get a result out of it, there is always something to be learned from that you can then apply to something else. I don't know if that answered the question.
It did. It did. Closing thoughts, 30 seconds, because I want to say a couple more
Closing
things.
thoughts, whatever it is you want to do, especially if you have a passion for it, do it and do it with everything. One thing I took from Oprah, I love Oprah, everybody does. She said, whatever you do, do it with everything you've got because you never know who's watching. And very quickly, if I can say this, the Handweavers Guild of America came into Rhode Island to do a show. And they called RISD because they always produce a fashion show for that. RISD said, oh, we don't do that, call Yemi. That is RISD. RISD is an entire institution. And they told this organization out of Georgia to call this one woman. So when I got the call from the president of the organization saying, we're coming to do our convention in Rhode Island, we need someone to produce a show, RISD said to call you, I almost fell out of my chair. It's like, really? And I mean, that job was, at the time, it was a five-figure sum in terms of income that they paid me to do this show. And I was just like completely blown away. So advice I give everybody, whatever it is you're doing, do it with everything you've got because you never know who's watching you.
Thank you so much, Yemi. It was wonderful. Just
My pleasure.
let us know the websites people can go to quickly.
The best way to find me, because I've got different sites, you can either go to DonahueCreativeGroup.com or Instagram, look for Yemi.Sekoni, my first name, period, my last name. And then I've got links to all of my businesses in my bio. And then you can kind of find me through those.
And Sekoni is Sekoni. Right,
Yes.
thank you. Wonderful. Stay on the line for a minute. All right, folks, that wraps up this edition of the Patricia Raskin Positive Living Show. To find me, to get a copy of my newsletter, which goes out the first of every month, so you can see these amazing guests I have on each week, write to me, Patricia at patriciaraskin.com. And if you're watching this and you see the positivity and how we can move forward and really share, and you'd like to do your own podcast series, I've interviewed over 6,000 people in my career, and I'd love to help you put it together. So contact me, Patricia at patriciaraskin.com. Remember, stay healthy, stay happy, get the support you need, and know you can make your dreams come true. Until next time, I'm Patricia Raskin. Bye for now.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's edition of The Patricia Raskin Show. Be sure to join Patricia Raskin and another amazing guest next Monday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, 11 a.m. Pacific Time on the Voice America Variety Channel. Have an outstanding week.